and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other host this week is Nick. Welcome back, Nick.
Thank you very much. It's awesome to be back as always, sir.
If this is your very first episode of the show, the way we format it is first we go through this week's news, and then we end it with the Brocat Block, which is the more personal side of the show, what Nick and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 546. Kicking things off with another business that was unfortunately hurt by the pandemic, by shortage of supplies. We've seen all kinds of good and bad, I guess, some businesses really benefiting and some not. Party City, who's America's largest party supply store for anyone that's outside the U.S., any international brokettes, has recently filed for bankruptcy. So analysts cite competition from Walmart and the Awesome Target, the emergence of Spirit Halloween, which pops up throughout the U.S. every year, and also the company's lack of growth in the digital market or the digital sector. So Party City, it sounds like, may end up being a thing of the past. Nick, did you have any kind of memories with Party City? Any kind of preference? Do you even shop at Party City anymore?
Not anymore, no. I mean, we still have one up here, so it's going to be, I guess interesting to see whether or not it finally gets the shutdown or sounding when it gets the shutdown. But I remember Party City as like almost a temple kind of growing up, because in my opinion, growing up, we didn't have a lot of merchandise things around like you do today, where you can walk in and see superhero stuff almost, if you will. And now there's an entire website of just superhero stuff, right? But like going in and seeing something with like a Wolverine costume was as close to merchandise as sometimes you'd get. So I remember going there and just even looking at the costumes on the wall, just being like, whoa, like the earliest form of cosplay I could think of. And unfortunately, not all the time could I actually go to their shop. We would go there to look around, but a licensed merchandised costume like that was like once every few years, definitely not in every Halloween type of deal.
We recently started going to Party City because they started carrying things like, for birthdays, they would actually carry licensed things like Pokemon, Sonic the Hedgehog, and not for Palpa Kelly and I. We actually learned it from Treasure Hunting Sonic, who was posting up pictures of Party City and the different sections, and they had a whole merch section for Sonic the Hedgehog. And we were like, oh, these are great little cups for Leo to use. So we went there and we picked up Pokemon, Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think they had Batman ones at the time, but they did have Jurassic World. So that's how we ended up getting a lot of little fun things for Leo to play with or to use throughout the home. So he's got his favorite little Sonic the Hedgehog cups, and he's got TMNT in there as well. So it ended up being like a cheaper alternative. I think they were only like $2 or $3 for the cups, and they're done pretty well. I mean, they're plastic, but the decorations on it, the printing is pretty high quality. It goes through the dishwasher all the time, and there's no fading or anything like that. And so for that, I will miss it. I will recommend that if anyone only goes there for Halloween or for special occasions like the baby reveal, we went there to do the big tube that shoots off the colors for Sophia when we revealed it to my parents. If you only go for those occasions, I would suggest at least checking it out if you're a collector, because there are some really cool themed stuff that you can get that you can use throughout the house throughout the whole year.
Well, I know too, if they're going to start liquidating stuff, I'll be sure to stop in and start looking at things, because we have a themed bathroom. It's a spooky bathroom, if you will. So it's almost Halloween 24/7 in there, and it might be cool to stop in there, see some things. But I agree with the fact that like it's got to be also like the Target and Walmarts of it, because those sections are just they're small little portions of their business. They pop it up, they shove it full of stuff. People come and buy it because they're already there for the candy and the sodas and everything else they need in life. So why make another stop?
I will be pretty sad to see them go, but again, I'm not a regular shopper there, so if you are looking to collect some of that stuff, now would be the time, just in case. Bankruptcy does not mean that they're closing, but it's not a good sign for the business overall. They could bounce back from this, but they'll have to do some major adjusting before they can start opening up even more stores or close down less of them. So we have some Disney news this week, as after years of rumors and updates on a third Tron film, Tron Ares is finally moving forward, with Deadline reporting that director Joachim Ronning, who previously did Maleficent Mistress of Evil, is in early negotiations. So Jared Leto is still involved in the project, as he has been the only name attached to the project for years. He recently collaborated with Disney for their new upcoming Haunted Mansion film. And the previous director, Joseph Kosinski, who did Tron Legacy, he spoke last June about why more Tron movies weren't made right away. He said, quote, "I really tried. I got close in 2015 and Disney pulled the plug on it. It was a different Disney by 2015. When I made Tron Legacy, they didn't own Marvel. They didn't own Star Wars. We were the play for fantasy and science fiction. And once you've got those things under your umbrella, it makes sense that you're going to put your money into a known property and not the weird art student with black fingernails in the corner. That was Tron." End quote. So first off, Nick, what'd you think of Tron Legacy when that released, and will you be checking out Tron Ares?
I'm sorry that I can't add much to this, but no, I don't even think I saw it when it came out. I really don't think I did. The 80s one meant nothing to me, so like to follow up on that was not really something that I was interested in. I like Olivia, what's her last name? She's in that one. She's nice. She's a really good one. I can't
House,
remember
right?
who this. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's exactly what 13. I always think of her as 13. I know that she I also like the change up she was in, and she directed, if I'm not mistaken, Booksmart, which is pretty good. Gosh, it bothers me when I can't think of people's names. It'll come to me like if I stop halfway through the middle of the show and I'm just like, last name. It's because that's anyway, just a warning. But I can't even remember who the main character was. I know that Kurt Russell shows up, and now I know in hindsight that a terrible CGI young Kurt Russell's in there, and
Jeff Bridges.
nothing about that movie has made me, in the coming years, or in the fourth years, I should say, made me be like, I should really check that out. So I still haven't. And even after this, I don't know if I will. The most interesting part about what we've said so far, in my opinion, is like when you were talking about he's working on them with a new Haunted Mansion movie. I'm like, oh, I didn't hear about that. There's a new Haunted Mansion movie. All right, cool.
Yeah, I think it comes out late this year or early next year. But I was kind of back and forth on the Haunted Mansion one. I'm like, it's a great ride, but I really wanted the Guillermo del Toro's take on it, because that would have been a very creepy iteration to it, and his ideas are phenomenal. Even his character designs alone would have been worth the watch. But then as soon as they cast Jared Leto for this new one, I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to watch the new Haunted Mansion. He's one of the ghosts, the hat top ghost or whatever you call it. I don't know how important or how big he'll be in it, but the cast is definitely stacked. Jamie Lee Curtis is Madame Leota. But anything with Jared Leto, I will watch. This one, Tron Ares, I'm with you on the Tron stuff, because the 80s Tron, I'm too young for that one, where I'm sure if I saw it as a kid and I was growing up in that era, that those special effects were incredible for that time. Would have had a special place in my heart. I watched Tron Legacy at Downtown Disney here in Florida, and that was a part of, because I was a cast member at that point, they were doing check out the new AMC dine-in theaters. Cast members get in for free. Pick one of these movies. And we chose Tron Legacy. Watched it, and I'm like, it was okay. And I bought it, and I still own it. And every now and again, I'm like, I remember this being cool because of the special effects and the actors in it, like you were mentioning, Olivia. And then I get halfway through the movie, and it kind of takes this weird churn where it becomes less about the Tron world and more about trying to stop Q, I think was the character's name, or the evil Tron. And there's not as much spectacle, and the story is not that interesting. And I turn it off at that point. I'm like, all right, the nightclub scene is gone. The light cycle stuff is gone. I don't know why I rewatch this. And every year I go through that same cycle, but only for the reason that Jared Leto's in it am I going to go see Ares. And I know Disney fans are pissed. They don't like Jared Leto for whatever reason, but I bet you they're going to be there for Tron Ares. They're going to go see it.
There also has to be, no coincidence whatsoever that they're about to open that Tron ride too at one of those parks. I can't remember which one it's in. I want to say Epcot.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Right. Is it Epcot? I couldn't think if it was that or if it was going to be in Tomorrowland. And
I'm pretty
Epcot,
sure it is Epcot, because they're trying to, it's no longer, they even changed, Bobby just posted up on Discord, the parking signs to Epcot, and it's no longer like Discovery Land or it's not about Future World or Utopia. It's now merchandise characters. You have the Dumbo parking, and they're slowly starting to turn Epcot into more of a rides area, not so much an adult area where you go around the world, you eat and drink around the world, you check out the different cultures, the different sciences that they had in there. They're slowly getting away with from all of that. And they just put in the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. They're not putting a Tron ride like you were saying. So they're trying to make it more like a new MGM Studios or something. I don't really know what identity they're going with on Epcot, maybe futuristic, but it just kind of doesn't match that Guardians is there and now that Tron is there.
And now I wonder too, with the big buyout, or not buyout, the big shakeup, I should say, with the other guy coming back who once was. I'm not good with the names. I know there's a bunch of Michaels.
Bob Iger.
On there. Yeah, thank you. Michael's, Bob's, but there's a bunch of people, and like that one, he's gone now, and the other guy's coming back. And think that'll have any effect on that? Because I don't want to lose that cultural aspect of it. Like you said, like it's not a kid friendly zone, but out of the 4 parks, it's probably last to bring the kiddo to. I enjoy that aspect of it though.
I'm with you, man. I like that's my favorite park, Epcot, easily. That's the one I'll go to. MGM, take it or leave it. Magic Kingdom, same thing. Animal Kingdom. But Epcot, I really enjoy because it is more about walking there, either by yourself, with your significant other, with friends. It's all about the experience with whoever you're with. It's less about, oh, can we get on that ride? Can we get on this ride? Let's go on that. It's just enjoying yourself and enjoying your day at the park. And I don't know, that's why I like it. But you're right, they seem to not like Epcot as much. And I'm sure there's some statistics somewhere that tells Disney that the more kids enjoy themselves, the more the parents are going to spend, or the more that kids are going to want, hence more money. And Epcot's probably not that one.
Yeah, because now that you mention it too, I didn't get on it, but I do remember they put in that Remy's Ratatouille something riding around in France. So you're right. The more I think about it, the more stuff they're putting in there to try to make it friendly. So yep, that Tron thing's going in there. They're going to tie it in for the movie release. They have some good ideas. They kind of know some business stuff.
I hope to get a Tron Ares trailer pretty soon, and I'll be curious to see if it ties in at all to the previous 2 films. According to a new report, Amazon is now developing live-action adaptations of both Sex Criminals and Bitch Planet. So Amazon has had pretty good success previously with The Boys and also Invincible, and they're now looking for their next successful adult comic adaptations. Are you familiar with Sex Criminals or Bitch Planet?
Neither. No, I had to Google both of them, so I have the Wikipedia up, and I was just reading a little bit about it before we came on, and I could see where they're going. I find it interesting. They're both Image Comics, so they kind of know what source material they want to pull from. Both pretty recent. We'll see. Were you familiar with these before? Like, are you excited for this?
I didn't read Bitch Planet, but I was subbed to Sex Criminals, and I was subbed to it for a little while. Kelly and I were reading it, and it's a very funny adult comic book. It's to anyone not familiar with that premise, someone discovers that when he climaxes, time stops. And so he's able to, at first he messes around with his boss. For example, he shits in his boss's office, and he's able to do all kinds of stuff. But once, let's say, his body is ready again, then that's when time resumes. And he finds out, like, whoops, like he's caught naked in the middle of some place. But as the story progresses, you find that there's an organization of criminals that do bad things with their powers as well. They have the same thing. As soon as they climax, time stops, and they're out there just stealing and taking from good people, bad people. And that's kind of where the comic sort of begins, because he gets involved in it and meets a girlfriend that also has the same abilities. So it's going to be a very funny show, and I think it could do pretty well on Amazon.
The one thing I'm confused about, when does time come back on for them? That was the one thing I don't get. How long of a time frame do you have with this frozenness?
Yeah, from what I remember, I think it's when you're ready to like get hard again, or
okay, okay, wow. So sometimes, especially the older you get, you can really stretch that time out. When you're a young man, there would be times, boom, you're right back at it. But no, you're right. Like the older you get, that would get a little bit longer. All right, good to clarify that. And then the second part is like, is it the same amount of time? I.e., so like if you were in that time and then all of a sudden I got in that time, would we be at the same time of slowiness? Does that make sense? Is it like clock stoppers where if we all have the watch on, it all makes sense in terms of slowness?
But we would be in the same stopped time mode or whatever. Like you can chase, they start chasing each other around. They're in stop time, but then you will freeze, I guess, or no longer move if your time is done. So there's like one villain who she has something in her that constantly makes her so she can make it last longer. So that there, yeah, the rules are kind of funky, but it's meant as a comedy.
I'm excited to see how they go. Now, the other thing that we mentioned then, like, do you have any news or do we know? Oh, no, it's just in developing live act. Oh, no, it says that live action. Sorry. I buzzed out there. Because when you said Invincible for a second, I was like, oh, that would kind of work as a cartoon as well. Because you can get really zany with cartoons and the cost stays down with the time stoppage.
Yeah, and especially when it gets a little crazier later on, where like there's one guy who has powers to, when he climaxes, he's able to create out of his stuff, like it just generates into whatever he's aroused by, and it can be in like he's into anime, so it creates this anime like tentacle monster, and they have to run away from it. So they'll have to do some crazy stuff when they get into live action, because as the time slows down, they'll have to figure out, I don't know how camera works now with how they can capture all of that, but it would be, I think, a lot easier to do in animation, especially if they use a similar studio that they use for Invincible. But if they're going live action with it, and they've done it with The Boys, I'm sure they can pull something off with Sex Criminals or Bitch Planet.
That's a good point. I read, are you caught up on The Boys? Do you watch that? Can I spoil stuff or no?
You can spoil it. This is a warning for the brokehead. If you haven't seen it, this is your spoiler warning. I have not seen or read The Boys, but I heard it's very different than the comic.
I don't have to go too far, just far enough, everybody will understand. There's one guy in there called Termite, and he is basically DC's the Atom, big and small kind of guy, or Ant-Man if you like that. And they're getting some sort of nod or what's it called? Nominated for fucking VFX stuff. So you're right. If they can afford to make somebody look really tiny who's not very tiny, I'm sure they could pull off. All right. I have a question though. I got to kind of come back to it. Maybe I should just read it. But like, so when this guy makes stuff out of himself, does it like a Green Lantern ring, like hang out of himself and he's got to use it like that? Or is it its own thing that can like run away and past him?
Yes, it is. It comes out of him like a Green Lantern thing, but he can't control it. Like the whole time he's apologizing. Like, he's like, I'm sorry. And they run away from it.
This is amazing. All right. I'm more and more behind this show. Sex Criminals. All right. No, I'm not only that, but I got to buy the book before everybody else hears about it and buys the book too. And then
yes,
I'll be paying for it. So I'm going to stop by good old Comics on the Green for everybody in the Scranton area. I'll pimp them out all day. Sorry. I just like people to shop local if they can.
And the whole run is done, so you can read I don't know if there's an omnibus that came out, but definitely if you are at all, if you like The Boys, if you like The Invincible, and you're going to check out these new shows, pick up the comics ahead of time, because my experience when I used to work at the comic shop, as soon as any show hit TV, Y the Last Man, Sandman, there was all Invincible, the books they went out of print, they became impossible to find for a good while before they started reprinting them again. So get on that now, before you watch the show, just in case you like the show. Even if you don't like the show, I know Sex Criminals is a good run. I haven't read Bitch Planet, but I've heard good things. So if anything, they're safe bets.
Yeah, that one's saying, I'm reading the plot of that Bitch Planet. It's a really quick pivot. The series focuses on women who have been imprisoned for being non-compliant in an off-planet prison called the Auxiliary Compliance Outpost. The narrative arc moves through time, presenting how the women were arrested in the first place, as well as their various experience within the prison. Okay, prison show. I mean, that's easy enough to get. So that's cool. Right?
Yeah, and that comic came out at a time where maybe 10 years ago or so, where there women-focused comics or shows or all of that was still like not as common as it is today, or these kinds of shows with female leads weren't as successful or as easy to pull off in that period as they are today. And it's just a different landscape. But for that period, Bitch Planet, that was a big deal, because it's like, oh, a fully female-led comic book. And it didn't do as huge as like something like Sex Criminals, but it still had its solid run. It had its fan base. I think Bitch Planet will have the potential, actually both of these will have that potential of having a bigger TV audience than a comic audience. Neither ones were massive as far as sub numbers, but for Image, they were popular enough, and Image is a smaller imprint, or at least they were at that time. So comics like these were landmarks for that period.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just reading here too as I'm going through because I was going to make a joke like, "Oh, it's like Orange is the New Black in prison," but apparently, like,
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
yeah, right. But I'm reading here the two creators plan to include the backstory of an inmate every third issue before discovering the Netflix series Orange is the New Black, which had a similar structure. They decided to continue with the idea. So, if anything, it's not like that because they kind of realized, oh man, it's kind of like that, and they pivoted. How weird is that?
And I think it also has a more like off-planet barbaric type of style. So anyone worried that it's just like a standard prison show, this is going to have some sort of fantasy, or at least it's going to be dressed up more as far as the sets. It's going to be very different, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, exactly. In terms of off planet, hopefully we get a lot of cool makeups,
Hmm.
a little less CG, just a few people sitting down and really getting globbed up with silicone. And I love that shit, dude. I like to think about how long that takes and the patience it must be to just sit in a chair and they're like, all right, you ready? See you in 8 hours. And that's when they're done. You know, you just sit there just like shit. And then all of a sudden you're a new person. I just watched for the first time Will Smith and Joel Egerton, Bright. It was a while ago because we were talking about actually not too long ago because that was directed by
David
David
Ayer.
Ayer. Yeah. And it was fucking brilliant. It was really, really good. But I just thought about Joel Egerton all the time, just sitting there like, I'm at work right now. And before he even has to go to work, sitting at work almost, you know what I mean? Like at his first job of sitting there getting the makeup done just to get ready to go to the second job of having to act now. Like, must be some hardcore shit. Especially with all that stuff in his mouth too. Like, I mean, full thing, full eyes, contacts. There's almost nothing left of him.
For some actors, that's make or break as far as if they're going to come back for more films. I forget who played Mystique, but all the Mystiques that have played in the X-Men films, they've mentioned how makeup was a big deal to them and how strenuous that could have been. And I know for Jennifer Lawrence more recently, that's the reason why they had more shots of her as Raven rather than the full Mystique makeup. And then even then they started to have, oh, you're a part of the X-Men, you're going to have a costume on that covers you up mostly, and that way we only have to do your hands and your face and your hair. And Dave Bautista recently over Guardians of the Galaxy, he's like, I'm tired of that. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't have to. Someone like him and Jennifer Lawrence, they're big names now. So it's like, do I really want to sit in a chair for 8 to 10 hours and then do this little scene that I'm already uncomfortable in? So it's just kind of crazy. Like, you and I love that stuff though. Like, I'd rather that than a full CG body.
Yeah, yeah. And I love to sit there and think about it too. Because it's funny that you mentioned Jennifer Lawrence and it was Rebecca Romaine who was the first original one. But like as you watch the movies more, you do realize exactly what you just said. Like, she's blue a lot less than she was in this first one. And then when you watch the last one, A, not in it very long, B, not blue in it very long. And when she is, like you said, yes, it's only her face, but then she's got like a small patch of what used to be everywhere. And it's just on her forehead. It looks like somebody licked it and just stamped it right on there. Like, all right, get out there. So I love that we're on the same page and noticing and seeing that same kind of shit sometimes of like, it must be uncomfortable. It's got to be crazy. I heard for Jim Carrey on the Grinch set that they eventually had to hire a CIA guy who taught him how to withstand torture techniques in order to sit in the chair for as long as he needed.
I think the contacts were a big thing for him where they hurt his eyesight. And yeah, it does not look like a comfortable costume. The Grinch. That's a modern classic though. I noticed that like coworkers younger than me, they love that movie and that Scooby-Doo live action. They go on and on about that stuff. So those were apparently big hits for kids like a generation right under ours.
Yeah, see, I was a young kid, so that Scooby-Doo movie still does a lot for me. I really liked that one growing up. I just like Scooby-Doo a lot.
I know it's a little off topic, but did you watch Velma?
I've done 2 episodes. I haven't gone further, and that's just, time on, time off. I don't know. It's fine.
All right. Yeah. I mean, last week Julian was hating on it. I haven't seen it and I was curious to what you thought.
It's definitely, how they would say back in the day, like, it's not your grandfather's Scooby-Doo, and it's not, and it's very different. There's some things in it that are fine, but there's not a lot good. It's not a good show. Not only is it just not like, I don't want to sit here and be like, it's a bad Scooby-Doo show, because it's worse than that. It's just a bad show. The Scooby-Doo stuff that is in it that works, but it just kind of seems like they wanted to make their own adult cartoon and they also need some safe. So they're playing with IPs with making them their own. And it's its own thing. It's fine. I got to see how it ends, to be honest. Like I got to finish it all the way through to really, for 2 episodes, it's hard. It's hard to. Like, the opening scene is really cringe if you ask me. So I could see why some people don't even get past that, but
Mm.
I got to see it through until the end, and then I'll have a full thing on it. If it ends really bad, if it like crashes like that, I'll be upset. But if there ends up being a good mystery in it, then well, they got one thing right.
There you go. So a lighter review, that's for sure, compared to Julian's. If I have nothing better to watch, maybe I'll check it. I was talking to Paul through DMs on Twitter, and he was talking about how it makes fun of both woke culture and the other side. Like, it makes fun of everyone. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And that would explain why so many people are mad at it. But I have to, I guess, see it for myself just to see if that's true. But this week, we also have some Marvel news, as the Avengers fans for the video game are pretty upset about some really pricey downloadable content that was released just before the developer, Crystal Dynamics, announced it was killing support for the video game. So just one day before the announcement, Crystal Dynamics released a $75 cosmetic DLC pack for MCU skins in the game. So Crystal Dynamics will be giving away all of these very same cosmetic packs at the end of March. So that got fans pretty upset because, one, if they bought the cosmetic games or the patches one day beforehand, it's like, all right, I don't know if they did any refunds for it or not, but if they didn't, I can see why people who bought it day one would be upset. Like, I should have just waited till March. And two, the gamers that were liking it are now mad that they're killing support for it because all of the money that they were putting into DLC for the skins, like, yeah, I want more of this. Here, let me give you my money. It apparently went nowhere. There's no sequel coming. There's no additional content now coming for the past the MCU skins. Kind of a poorly handled way to handle this video game because the fans that they did have are upset. And then Marvel in general, unless it's Sony Spider-Man, and they kind of have a hit or miss record with video games. It seems like they'll have a pretty big hit like the Spider-Man Sony game, and then they'll have a bunch of games like this one, like the Avengers, where it just doesn't take off like they probably wanted it to.
I don't do a lot of gaming. I don't know a lot about it, but I don't hear anything good about it. I did try to do maybe something on YouTube caught me once, and I watched a walkthrough, even if it's the same game we're talking about, because they don't, until right now, it's sounding like with these skins, as they call them, these guys didn't look like the MCU.
Right.
They were clearly different, correct? Yeah, all right. So I am thinking of the right game, and it seemed okay. Like, it was just this guy kind of walking through the what's it called, the helicarrier, and just kind of having free roam over that was what I was interested, just to see how far into detail they went, and that was kind of cool. But I don't understand this whole thing. Yeah, like we were talking about, they already, in my opinion, were at a strike because they didn't make it look like MCU characters. And I remember people going like, huh, that's weird. And then the next strike is like, why would you? I'm just making sure I'm reading this right. So they announced, hey, we're going to have these things. They're $75. And then the next day they're like, hey, if you bought that thing, the same thing is free in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, that's stupid. Why?
Yeah, and the argument could be made with like, well, you paid $75 for early access. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, you got to market it that way then and be like, look, we have this really great thing. It'll be free at the end of March. But if you want that shit right now, you can pay for it. Because you're right. If they don't do returns, that's some sneaky dick and shit. And then if they do returns, fuck, that's a lot of headache for somebody. You got to pay somebody to do all that, I'm sure. And I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Not a game that's been doing well from the get-go. This is the one that had a bunch of people making fun of it when they did the trailer, and Steve Rogers looked really weird. Like, all of them looked like off-brand, like Walmart brand Avengers and shit.
When you order it online versus when you get it at home kind of shit.
Yes, the Wish.com Avengers.
Yes.
I'm glad I didn't buy it. I know Bobby likes it. He plays it all the time still. He streams it on YouTube, so I hope he's able to download this content in March, and once he downloads it, he'll have full access to it, and even when they shut down support, as long as it's in his console, he'll be able to play it. And they are still keeping up the server, so in case you play online with people, that will stay up for the time being. We have more Marvel news, as in an interview with the Movie Business Podcast, Lord Feige revealed the secret formula to MCU movies. Warner Brothers Discovery, I'm sure you're listening because you want to do everything Feige wants to do. You want to do the MCU 2.0. So here's his answer. His revelation is, quote, "There are no secrets. There's secrets in terms of the storylines and spoilers and things like that. But if there was a formula, because people have been asking up for a very long time, what's the formula? And the truth is, there isn't any. End quote. Bullshit. Nick, what is the formula? You can tell me what the formula is. Lord Feige doesn't want to tell us what the formula. You tell us what the formula is.
Open with eventual good guy who's kind of a bad guy dick. Have that bad guy dick go through something either metaphysical or spiritual, changes their tune, becomes good guy, fights business partner who they thought was good guy at the end with very similar powers. Finn.
Done. There is a formula to this, Kevin. And I don't know why he's being coy about it. I don't know if he thinks it would ruin. I don't know why he said it this way. Like, honestly, is he just trying to be he's trying to bullshit to make it look good, right?
At this point, I don't know. I mean, this quote probably could have like fucked around 10 years ago, but like right now, I don't really truly understand. Like, dude, you've been doing this for a while. No, we can. I mean, I just did it off the cuff there, but I think it's really not too bad of a real life formula. It's what happens, and it's kind of play on the oldest formulas and kind of going in a small, scratching the surface of the most basic level of kind of the hero's journey, but you do it every time, dude. Yeah, no, we understand. We're watching, we've seen the magic trick. We understand the back, we get it.
And the main thing too, and I mentioned this last week, is, and I don't know if you agree with me, but the tone has to remain in the middle. You can't have it be too sad. This is why they always throw in that joke that undercuts the moment of like a serious moment, a sad moment, a death. And then you can't have it, I guess you could have it super high. Like they like their super highs, very jokey, all that, but they just can't get it too low. No sadness, no seriousness. If there is, you got to brighten it up a little bit with a joke. And that seems to be every movie.
For sure. Yes. We haven't done a, I'm sure they call them nose breaths. It's what I also like to call them, like that. At the very least, we need a nose breath, which is something silly that makes somebody go just enough to kind of exhale out their nose. If not, we need to go for a full grin. And then every 10 pages, let's go for an all out laugh. So I'm sure that stuff is very closely monitored. If it's a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, it's like, have we mentioned a bodily function yet? No. Oh, 2 pages ago? All right, change it. So if we're talking about dumps, this time we're going to talk about piss. Mm-hmm. And then we'll go back to boogers, and then we'll circle all the bag back around. Like, we got this.
Warner Brothers Discovery, I know you're hiring people on to do the MCU, but Warner Brothers already did it with Justice League a few years ago. Just take that movie, what Whedon did, believe it or not, that's an MCU movie. Everything he did in there, just do it and keep doing it in your movies that you're currently making. They'll keep flopping, but if that's what you want to do, that's the formula. So have at it. That's Kevin's doing it and he's making money. Warner Brothers, you'll do it as well, but you won't make money. And I don't know why you want to keep going down that path, but best of luck. In the comic book world, the relationship between Bruce and Dick Grayson was further established into continuity. So in Nightwing number 100, at the grave of Alfred Pennyworth, if you haven't been reading, they killed off Alfred like 3 years ago, and there's been a little bit of a fallout from that, how Batman adjusts to a life without Alfred. Same with Damian. So there's a huge balance that happened there that didn't go in the right direction. And now it's Bruce is kind of finding his footing there and his place in the Bat family. Bruce apologizes for what he feels like was failing to Dick Grayson. He feels like he pushed him away because of his own failings. And that's when Nightwing counters him with a hug and tells him, "I love you, Dad." What are your thoughts on that?
It's brilliant. It made me cry a little bit, man. I whelmed for sure. I've never adopted a kid. I have, my parents are my parents, but like I'd have to think that this whole time it's what he wanted to hear, but neither of them were ever going to give it to the other one without asking almost, or like being afraid. They're both really good. Nightwing, obviously, Dick Grayson more so than Batman ever, but like taking that leap. But imagine being wrong. Imagine if he said that shit and we didn't get the reaction. He's like, "I'm not your dad." He had a 99% chance of getting the reaction that we saw, which is beautiful. But still, even with 1%, Dick was always too afraid to do it. So he did it. He finally took the leap. Batman saying to him, "I love you, son." Shit, he's much more afraid of that on my dad, because that's also much more a stereotypical kind of answer of a teen at any point, or even an adult, like who's someone who's not truly your dad. I don't know. I thought the whole thing was really nice. That's how I feel. How'd you like it though?
So I'm with you on the bit of where Bruce and Dick, their relationship since he became Nightwing, there's been a bit of a separation there. And I understand that they're close as far as he can trust Dick Grayson to take over as Batman or as the head of the Bat family, and he'd know what to do. And I think Dick Grayson would have that responsibility. He wouldn't question it and he would do it. Whereas someone like Damian or Jason Todd, Barbara Gordon, like I think there would be a little bit more of a hesitation to take on that role. Nightwing will do it. Now, where you mentioned of each one has to reach out to the other, and neither one has for years. And I feel like that's absolutely true. Bruce is always protecting himself, protecting his Bat family, but he's not the greatest at communication, at communicating his feelings or his thoughts to everyone else. He acts, he thinks. And so with him doing this and apologizing, making some sort of amends to him, that opened the door, like you were saying, of Dick Grayson to also to reach back and say that to him. Where I have a problem, I never saw them as like a father-son relationship. And I haven't been reading the Nightwing comics, so maybe that's different in there. Maybe I'd have a different opinion, but growing up on Batman the Animated Series, even the live-action Batman Forever movie that came out, anytime I read or watched any Batman Dick Grayson stuff, I don't know why I didn't see it as a father-son relationship. I saw it as a partnership. Maybe older brother, younger brother, that's a little bit of a stretch for me. But I grew up on Batman the Animated Series where it's like, all right, I'm taking you on as my ward and you're my partner, and we're both, I'm going to teach you what I do. And I'm also going to, at one point later on in the future, bang your girlfriend that you broke up with, or she broke up with you. Like, he ends up with Barbara Gordon. So like, that's a more of a reason for like, not father son, or, it's just, and that's why Nightwing's real pissed off at him in the animated series. That, I don't know. That's why I don't see that relationship. So for me, it was weird seeing Dick Grayson say that to him. I love you, Dad. I'm not a Nightwing reader. I'm not a Nightwing fan. My favorite Robin is Damian Wayne. That's his son right there. Like, that relationship I see as father and son easily. But the way he treats Dick is different and always has been. And that's why I'm not making that connection. But I'm curious to hear what Nightwing fans think. I'm going to have Sam on next week. He's a Nightwing fan. And see if that's true. And you might be a bigger Nightwing fan than I am. So have you grown up reading, watching all that stuff?
Honestly, yeah, 100%. It's reading it and growing up for sure with Batman the Animated Series too. It's in my opinion, you can always end up finding a way to work with a partner because it's a job. You know what I mean? Even the people who I don't like to work with a lot, I can always get along with, but to like live with them and to be with them full time like that, like you can only do that with somebody you love, and you can only do that with family. And family in that term means a lot of things to a bunch of different people. And for a while, like, you're right. I think there was a point where like he was kind of like a cool uncle maybe, or, that family friend of just being a mentor. But at some point or another, I think it had to go. He went through puberty in the same house with him. I'm sure that they had to have a bunch of different talks past just kicking ass and taking names of how to be more so than a hero, but also how to be, not to offend anybody, but a man, or, an adult, or however you want to put it. Like, those conversations also, you can't say that there couldn't have been like a time where Dick Grayson's like, it's hard. What do I do, Bruce? What's going on? What's going on with me? And he's just like, it's all right. It's going to happen, or Bruce, my sheets are wet. What happened? Like weird shit like that had to have happened growing up. You would think.
Because I always thought Alfred was that guy.
When he got him, how old, like in your head?
See, because I grew up with the animated series, he's in college. So they're only about 10 to 15 years apart in the animated series, if that. That's why I always saw them as a little closer.
That's a good point. Yeah, because in my head, Batman perfectly, like in the universe that it is, he's always 35.
Mm-hmm.
So if Dick is in college, then at the very least, he's 18, you would think. So yeah, we're talking 17 years difference there if he is my perfect age. But in my head too, like he got Robin at like 10.
Right, even in the cartoon. Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how I've always imagined it. So like that time from 10 to then again, maybe 18, 19, 20 in my universe of timeline. I don't know where it stands in canon versus everything, but that's when that switch happened of Robin to Nightwing and him just being like, I can't, I have to, I'm, metaphorically, and I'm too big for this nest anymore, dude. I got to get the fuck out. I can't live under your shadow. And I don't think that it was primarily a hero shadow. It was, I've got to go out and be my own man, be my own person, be my own everything. And again, yeah, that's more so a father-son type of deal than a partner type of deal, in my personal opinion.
To end this all off, I had mentioned the Barbara Bruce relationship. I don't know if you ever read the Batman Beyond comic books, but they continued them fairly recently, within the last 10 years. And I think it was called Batman Beyond Unlimited. And they explored that because in the animated series, they never say why Dick Grayson turned into Nightwing and left the Batcave and did his own thing. They just do a time jump between seasons 3 and 4, and he's Nightwing now. And then they have another Robin, which is Tim Drake. But in the comics, they explain that while Bruce and Barbara were together, he ended up impregnated. Well, she ended up pregnant, and they weren't sure whose kid it was. And that's how Dick found out that they were hooking up, is through that pregnancy. And through their argument between Batman and Nightwing, at one point, Barbara, I believe, tries to get in between them. Something happens where she gets knocked back, she falls, and she ends up losing the baby. And that's what causes that rift between them. He was still Robin at this point. And then when that happened, he was like, fuck you, man, I'm off. And that's what caused that rift in that continuity in the comics. And I always thought that was interesting because I'm like, was it Bruce's kid at the end of the day? And that could have been a way to continue like the lore even of the animated series of that could have been their Damien if they wanted to go that route or have an all new character. But unfortunately she loses it, and that's what causes that rift.
Very interesting. I got to pick that one up. But I could have sworn in the animated, wasn't there a series where we see Dick Grayson deck him? Now you're saying like that conversation started or that argument started over this?
I don't know if that fully explained what everything was about. In the series, they definitely don't go that route.
No. Oh, no. And the only reason I can kind of think of it, because I know for sure he throws down the domino mask and it was all whited out in the eyes. And I was just so confused over how those masks work. Even as a kid, I was like, so wait, it's not like, does he see through those? Are they cloth? Why do they move? But also, and you brought it up, you have a proper replica of the grappling hook gun used in that show. And you got a really good angle in it. And that was the first time I remember seeing that and going like, oh, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, like even when I've been watching the show again with Leo, it's like, no, that's an exact replica. They did a good job with it. Big that's ass awesome. Button at the top, all that.
Damn, I've been like every time I've been going through to Walmart, just like, all right, if I see it this time, I'm going to do it. And of course, now I don't see it anymore, but high hopes for one day. There's always Mercari too.
That's true. And there's always online anywhere. Yeah. It's always good to find it. And I know you understand this. You've talked about it on the show before, the hunt. That's a part of it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Well, speaking of Batman the Animated Series, Mark Hamill, the voice of Joker, had an interview with Empire, and he revealed that he doubts he'll return as Joker with Kevin Conroy now gone. He said, quote, "They would call and say, they want you to do the Joker, and my only question was, is Kevin Batman? If they said yes, I would say I'm in. We were like partners. We were like Laurel and Hardy. Without Kevin there doesn't seem to be a Batman for me," end quote. Now this isn't the last time he's talked about stopping the Joker role, but now there's different circumstances. There's no Batman, and I'm okay saying that because for other people, they have their own voice actor or whatever for Batman, or they can move on. But to me, that's it. Like Batman has lost his voice. So Mark Hamill saying this, I mean, that hurts too. You know, I'd love to see him continue and hear the Joker as much as we can, but I totally respect his decision.
It's a hard pill to swallow on both ends. I really did just get somber. You know, I read this. I know, fuck though, it really just truly does hurt. Because like you said, I mean, they are mine. It's going to be literally impossible from this day until my very end to read Batman and not hear Kevin in my head. So I understand completely in the sense of what Mark is saying. It's a beautiful sentiment too, you know, to think like, oh, is Kevin doing it? All right, I'll be there. And now he knows the answer no matter what. So why even do it at all? It's sad, dude. Fuck, it's sad. I hope he does. I don't know. I really honestly don't know. Maybe he could do it in like, you know, we're talking Batman Beyond, maybe in a project in which the Joker's in it and for some odd reason Bruce Wayne's not. I don't know. Flashback. I don't know. It makes me sad though.
It is oddly poetic though, because very much like the Joker in The Dark Knight Returns, as soon as the Batman retired, the Joker's like, oh, well, I'm done. Like he checks himself into the crazy house and does nothing for years.
Beautiful. Nice.
And then also in the animated series, when the man who killed Batman happens, the Joker's like, there's no punchline in crime anymore. Like he finds no fun in it without Batman. So if he were to retire the Joker role without Kevin, I'm like, they're literally fucking Joker and Batman.
It's life. Sorry, imitating art. Yeah, dude, that's beautiful. What a beautiful sentiment. I enjoy that. Actually came a little bit more to peace with the entire thing, thinking about it that way. Of like, yeah, no, why would I do it? There is no bad. Wow, beautiful. Nicely done, sir.
What do you think of because this is something that selfishly I've been thinking like I would want. And I don't know I don't know where you sit on this of now the program we're using now, I was able to consent and it took all the voices that I've done throughout the podcast and it learned it. And now I can type out a sentence and it'll say whatever in my voice. There's technology now. Microsoft just announced something this week. With 3 seconds of audio, they're able to replicate your voice, including inflection. And it's able to learn all of that. Obviously, it needs your consent or whatever, but how would you feel about the Hamill estate or the Conroy estate, having that option of signing off the voices over to a company to continue the voices of Batman and Joker? Where would you sit on something like that? Kind of like Disney has done with the weird face mapping.
That's the exact place in which I was going to say it belongs, in that weird zone of, I don't know how I feel about that. I guess it's up to the estate, but people are scumbags for the most part, if you ask me. And they'll milk anything dry that they can, where all of a sudden we have Kevin Conroy as Batman, like, drink, Diet Dr. Pepper. It's the Dr. Pepperist. And, they're just sitting there like, ka-ching. I wouldn't want that, but maybe I would too, because in my head, if I knew anything about the person from interviews, which is, not a great way to learn anybody, he wouldn't mind that. If it was being used for integrity, for Batman's sake, I don't think he'd mind that, because he always, in interviews, so as much as he let in, always said like he never treated it like a kid show or never treated it like kid stuff, and it was always very serious and very, almost like he went to fucking Juilliard, dude. Like he understood what art was in that sense and always treated it like that. So if somebody could come along and prove to somebody like, no, that same spirit is what I have in wanting to continue Batman and needing his voice to do that, I would hope that it would pass. If it was ever us, for in some weird reason, Warner, they're listening. They're like, all right, those two are going to make the next Batman. And we pleaded saying, dude, like, we want to make an animated Batman, but we can't do it without Kevin. I'd hope somebody would let us do it. And I'd hope that, in their grave or in the afterlife or however you want to view it, like, that he'd look and be like, all right, cool. Like, they understood that it's Batman. And I liked Batman. It's gray, to answer your question in a long ass winded way. Sorry.
No, I'm in the same. It's like there's good and bad with it. And I think we're going to see more of this. We're seeing AI art, and that's like a whole thing. Like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it really art? Is it not? We're seeing that with voices now. Is that like, we're seeing that with script, where you can have a computer write out a script or a speech, an apology letter, and it'll do it for you based on what it's learned from the internet. You can ask it a question. It'll give you a response. And there's a lot of like ups and downs to all of that. So yeah, I'm with you. I would love to hear more of Batman, but at the same time, would I be like, well, it's his voice, but it's not really him. He didn't really get behind the mic and act it out. Is this how he would have said it himself? Like, there's a lot of that goes into it, and it takes the art, I guess, out of it. So maybe,
I got it. Hold on. If Andrea Romano came out of retirement to supervise, then I'd say go for it.
There you go. That's how many years they have.
The only way I'd have it, correct, because that's the only person who'd be like, no, that's how he'd say it. I'd make him say it that way or shit like that. Like,
that's right.
Sorry to cut you off, but I was like, that's the compromise. If she was there going, all right, that sounds good, I'd buy it.
Perfect. And that's what we'll leave that one. We've got some Jason Momoa news, as in an interview with Variety Studios, he confirmed that his time as Aquaman is not over. He said, quote, "I'll always be Aquaman. Ain't anyone coming in there and taking shit. There might be some other characters too. I can play other things too. I can be funny and savage and charming," end quote. So that pretty much confirms he's playing Aquaman and Lobo, right? Like he's saying that he's playing multiple characters in the DC universe.
Really quick, gotta have a ticket out of there. I'm sorry, you might find it funny. And he's a Batman fan, so we might. Do you remember Chris Daughtry? American Idol Chris Daughtry, he had that song, and it was called "It's Not Over." Every time I hear that shit, like, and I had to like literally almost turn away from the mic and go, "It's not over."
I
Sorry.
hadn't heard that one now.
Oh, Jesus. I hope one person's like, I know what he's talking about out there. I'm sorry, though. But if you listen, like, when I talk sometimes too, I can't get away from it's been a while.
Right.
Same kind of tick that I had to get through that. I guess he could be Lobo. I would want him just to be Lobo. I'm not a fan of his anymore, man.
Mhm.
I don't know. His I don't know. He used the ain't that bothers me. His response ain't nobody taking shit. Just like I could. He's cocky all of a sudden. We can get some fresh blood in there, I think.
Look, I got respect for the guy because he was one of the early ones that were fighting for the Snyder Cut. When Warner Brothers was saying, shut your mouth, don't talk about the Snyder Cut. I remember Patty Jenkins like shut down Gal Gadot real quick when they were in that interview tour. And she was like, we're not going to talk about that. We're not supposed to discuss that. Move on. But Jason was the one that was like, fuck yeah, I want to see it. Like famously said that. Fuck yeah, I want to see it. And kept talking about the Snyder Cut. And then slowly the other actors who weren't supporting that cut before started joining in. So I will always respect him for that. He helped empower the movement a lot. And I'm sure he was instrumental in getting that released, at least for the fan base. But now he is playing very nice with Gunn and Safran. He thanked them on Instagram Live specifically. Like, thank them for the DC universe. And it's like, yeah, but Zach cast you, dude. You're not going to thank him at all. Like, we were all kind of like, all right, dude. And some people in the movement are like, let him have his fun. Let him have his money. Let him enjoy. What do you want him not to work? And it's like, he can work, but I'm not going to be there to see Aquaman 2 or Lobo, whatever that ends up being, or whatever he ends up playing. I guess good for him, but as you said, I'm no longer a fan either.
What was the movie? I guess it was Superman Man of Tomorrow, and a movie that they made pretty recently, and Lobo's pretty big involved in it. Maybe 33%, a good chunk of it. And even watching that, I was like, I wouldn't want to see him live action. I don't care enough to bring this character in there. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not a big enough Lobo fan. Maybe I don't know enough, but it just seems like to stretch that taffy for a minimum of 90 minutes would just not be a good time. And then, of course, they'd have to bring in the entire, like, I heard there's a fish guy who looks like me. And
yeah.
Again, I'm okay with him. He could sit down. He's fine.
Well, we have more on the future of this Gunverse. Alleged pedo Gunn revealed on Twitter his approach to casting this new DC universe. He said, quote, "We have hundreds of roles to cast. As I've always done, some will be brand new faces, some will be actors I've worked with before, and some will be actors who I've never worked with. What matters most is the actor fits the role and they're easy to work with," end quote. So that Ben Affleck's done, that's for sure at that point. Easy to work with. So clearly we just talked about Momoa. He's playing nice with all sides, and interesting casting process, James. And it doesn't shock me though.
It should be like, some will be brand new faces, some will be actors I've worked with before, one will be my brother.
Yep, his wife now, she was in Pedo Maker.
Yeah. I saw that too, where he was like, of course I'm going to cast her. And I was like, I guess. Kevin Smith casts his wife all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
Nepotism's nepotism no matter where you go, I guess. I didn't recognize her face though. I don't really know. I guess I will soon. I guess I'll see her face in an upcoming DC project pretty fucking soon. But who else? I mean, he said all the Guardians are basically going to come in there, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
We don't need that. We're going to see. With that, though, who would you cast Dave Bautista as if he's going to come play? And he doesn't have to put on a bunch of makeup, I guess.
Dave Bautista, I'm terrible at casting because I'm immediately like everyone else. I'm like, who does he look like? I like him though. I really like Dave Bautista. I wouldn't want him in this DC universe. I guess if you were to ask me if let's say Gunn weren't involved, man, I know it's a stereotypical answer, but I think he'd do a deeper Bane. I know Tom Hardy just did that, but that might be an interesting Bane if he pulled that off. Yeah, I'm thinking of like lanterns as well, like maybe a Red Lantern, but I know he's also bigger than that. Like to play Atrocitus, he's got a larger range than that even. But I don't know. I'd almost want to cast him as a Lantern. I don't know which one though. What about you?
See, and no offense to the awesome reporter, but like I think he'd be a cool dark side as well. He can cut you down. Like you can look at him and know like, oh, he could punch me into next year. But also, I feel like there's a gravitas about his words sometimes where he could speak really low.
Yes.
And not aggressively, but also, again, like there's no sign of bitch coming out of him. So you just believe what he says when he says it. So like I could feel like he can also verbally smack you down a little bit. I can also, vice versa, that if we're sticking within there, is like he could probably also do a good Manhunter. Where again, I
Mhm.
would need to believe the words. The physicality is just that, and we can make that up with VFX or whatever. I need somebody as they're talking, like, and what I think he gives me is when they're talking, it's like I really have to pay attention to every word they're saying because it's really important for me to listen.
Well, we might get some of that casting sometime this month, as I guess in the next couple of days, even maybe by the time this episode launches, we will have gotten the first couple movies from the Gunverse, and I know I'll be here to make fun of it at least. So this won't be the last time you hear about it. Last couple bits here, as in an interview with CNBC, Bland Adams, The Rock, is denying that there was any truth to him and his business partners trying to take over the DC universe. He said, quote, "That is simply not true. I had a great meeting with David Zaslav, myself, and my longtime business partner, Danny Garcia. Her and myself went in, we sat with David, and we did not pitch a 10-year plan at all. What our meeting was about was the future and how we can build across the entire platform of Warner Brothers and Discovery," end quote. That it sounds like he pitched a fucking plan, and he didn't congratulate James Gunn. Like, he was radio silent for days when he was announced as the head of DC.
Oh yeah, he's another one. I don't even think I was a fan who could have turned. I don't trust him. I
Mhm.
think that he thinks he's much. I really do believe he's part. He thinks he's part god of some
Yeah.
sort. He's just too much into himself. For sure, I get this fucking attitude off him that he went in and said, "This is what I'm going to do for you," because I mean, it's not an unjustifiable. I mean, it could be with math and statistics, like that his brand, if you were to count him in of like his top movies, were bigger than DC movies at the time. You can maybe argue that just in terms of money, not in terms of quality or fandom or anything like that. I could see how he would potentially turn that into like, this is what this is what I'm gonna do for you. And I think now that his movie, I love that we call it Bland Adam. Fucking God, I love that. It was bad. It was real bad, Daniel. It failed miserably, and I'm happy to see his exit. And now this is a good step for me. I want him far away from DC Comics.
Yeah, I
He
don't
can go play Marvel all he wants. Please, no, let's not. No, I was never excited about this, in my opinion.
And that's what he wants to do. He wants to go play with Marvel. He wants any DC or Marvel job. And Bland Adam ended up losing Warner Brothers Discovery an estimated $100 million. Alleged pedo Gunn will not be bringing The Rock back for his 10-year DC plan. And I know some people were like, well, he was at least going to keep Henry. And again, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It was Justice League Henry Cavill. It wasn't our Snyder Cut Superman. It doesn't matter. He was not a friend to the movement. It made no difference whether he or Gunn were going to be the heads of DC. But I'm with you. I think he was lying. I think he definitely wanted this universe. He didn't get it. So now he either moves on or, yeah, he starts begging to Disney for some Marvel work.
I don't think he's that good either. I
No.
just don't understand the obsession. I really don't. Like, I liked him when he was like the goofy guy, like the Rundown. Have you ever seen that with Sean William Scott?
No,
He was
I
a
never saw
normal
it.
kind of big guy. It was right after, he was still going by Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He was still living off that kind of high of that kind of wave. That movie, super duper fun. And you could just tell just seems like that ego had not hit him yet. And I liked that character of The Rock, that guy of like, yeah, I used to be that wrestler guy, and now I'm just having fun. I'm a knucklehead out here in Hollywood. And now his whole persona is like, I'm a business titan out here in Hollywood. And I'm just not about that.
His ticket sales show that he is not like, yes, everyone knows who he is, but not everyone will go to theaters to watch his films. When Bobby and I were breaking down his top movies, it's like Black Adam is number one, but it also did not perform. So it's like, yes, he's well known, but that does not translate to sales. And I think he thinks he does. He's taken his popularity or his notoriety for being known, his famous nature or whatever you want to call it, and he's like, oh, I'm a huge deal. I should get paid. Look at all this money I'm making from endorsements and commercials. It's like, all right, but you're not a box office hit, dude. You will not bring in a shit ton of money for any company if you're the main lead even. This is your biggest movie and it didn't do great. So hopefully it's an ego hit. It won't be. I don't think it's going to be any kind of lesson for him, unfortunately. But, if he keeps having a couple more of these flops, then maybe eventually he'll grow to accept it.
There's people on his camp who every single day fed him like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not your fault. It's not your fault, D. If they had put more billboards up like we told them, it would have done better. If we had done more radio ads like we told them, it would have done better. There's a bunch of people just stroking that shit off. He'll never feel like he did bad.
But there you have it. That is this week's news. Let's head into the final portion of today's show, the Broket Block. What Nick and I have been up to, what we've been watching, reading, what's been making us broke since you last heard us. So, Nick, let's kick it off with you. What have you been up to?
What's making me broke, and I think this is the same answer as last time, so sorry, is I'm still on a Power Ranger collectible kick.
Ooh.
Just got me a Turbo Megazord, which is pretty cool. So Turbo was the one after Zero before Space. Didn't have one of those. Connects all. The joints are a little loose on the right arm, which is fine, no accessories, but still, it was a pretty penny to get it shipped all the way here as well. But that collection continues to amass, and I'm still not sure if I want to trade in or continue, or I don't think I ever want doubles. I think I draw the line at doubles. So, like Zap, it's a Zord Ascension project. They're coming out with a bunch of cool shit, and like, if I get a Dino Megazord and a Dragon Zord, I can make the Ultra Megazord, and like, that sounds cool. I can't do that right now with the versions of everything I have. So I might start selling some off to bring new versions in. I don't know. But that's what's making me broke that way. What's taking my time up is I just finished The Sopranos, which was
Nice.
fucking glorious. Just absolutely really good.
First time going through it?
All the way. So yeah, my wife and I started probably about a year ago. And I don't have any fatigue when it comes to watching something. I actually had the opposite, where I'm a dog with a bone. If like, next one, it's my personality. I could just fucking binge anything, it really seems. So I would say I pushed her to her limit about halfway through season 5, and we took a break, and then that break went so long that I just picked it back up from the very beginning and ran through it in about 10 to 15 days. So yes and no at first time. First time, start to finish, all the way through. But second viewing of more than half of the episodes. Good shit, though. Real good. You watch that one?
I'm almost done with season 1, and then I stopped. I forgot what came up that I started watching at that point, but it's still on my list on HBO Max, and I've enjoyed what I've watched. I like it more than Breaking Bad. That's when I started, and I was like, all right, I'm kind of done with it. So I do like The Sopranos. It's well shot, well written. Holy shit. Like, it's just fascinating. It's one of those that no one's a good person in the show that I've seen, but I'm rooting for him, even though it's kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm or Seinfeld. They're terrible people, but there's the main character that you're just rooting for him anyway.
And in my opinion, that's the shit that's what started it. From there, like we talked about, Breaking Bad is another great anti-hero story. Sons of Anarchy is another great one. There's a lot of shows in which the main character is kind of a piece of shit, and yet we're going like, yeah. And from what I hear, that really wasn't that much of a thing on television. Television wasn't much of a thing on television at that point. It was all like sitcoms and Dharma and Greg and shit. And all of a sudden this guy was like, nah, let's drop this. Because the thing that's fucking fascinating about it that just works so well is how hard you have to pay attention. You have to. There is no loosely watching. There is no kind of looking at your phone, because they'll introduce you to somebody and be like, yeah, it's my kid brother. And then all of a sudden, that person dies 6 episodes later. And then you're like, wait, why is that guy mad? And he's like, well, that was his kid brother. How'd you know that was his brother? They said that shit like 6 episodes ago offhand at a wedding, and he wasn't even in the frame. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to dive deep into keeping shit in order and who's who. And I like it. It's not in your face. There's a lot of reading between the lines. And even like I was saying, for the first half going through my second time, there's shit of like, oh, okay. All right. So I can see a third viewing even in my time soon.
Did you watch the prequel movie that came out last year?
I did. I spoiled everything for myself, and I watched that right when it came out last year because I was excited. And it's pretty good. I think I'm going to enjoy it more now that I'm all the way done. I had done a lot of spoilers. It was hard to go into the show completely naked because fucking, it's been too long. Everything you kind of know, at least a little bit of. You're just kind of going in there for the nuance of it almost. So The movie was pretty good. It wasn't exactly what I think they marketed it as, which is interesting. You know, they kind of, in my opinion, they're like, "You ready to hear the story about young Tony Soprano?" We are like, "Yeah," and they're like, "All right, here's a Dickie Moltisanti movie," and you're like, "Oh, okay, all right, cool, all right, this was fun." Hey, look, it's a young junior. This is fun.
So it's worth watching, it sounds like.
Oh, for sure, worth watching, but don't live up to the Tony Soprano prequel story because that it is not. There's a little bit in there, but that it is not.
Nice. Well, I'll be sure to check that out. I think it's on HBO Max as well, but I got to get through the show first, and it is excellent. That's good, man. I love that it's like you were saying. Whenever I used to go to, this will kind of date me a little bit to some of the younger broquettes, but when I used to go to Hollywood Video or Blockbuster, there'd always be like a full wall of like the latest season of Sopranos or Sex in the City or Curb Your Enthusiasm, and those were always shows that I'm like, I can never watch these because I don't have HBO. We didn't have HBO growing up. So I always knew of them, and I was like, I hear they're good. I know they're popular. Look at that fucking wall of DVDs and VHSs. But I now, as an adult, I'm like, I can finally see what the big deal was. And so far, they're amazing shows.
That's the number one thing I asked too about the popularity and stuff. You know, I remember going to my parents. I was like, "Did you watch this live? Like, did you wait every Sunday for this to come out? And like, what was that experience like?" And you know, for anybody out there who's not too familiar with something now, I think is beyond spoiler warning of like the very, very, very ending. You know about that, right?
Yeah, even I know about it, and I never saw it.
That's what I
It was
mean.
controversial. Yeah.
It's a pop culture staple. You
Mhm.
know, they're having a scene and it does that. It just stops. All of a sudden, it's over. So I was like, "How pissed are you?" And they're like, "We thought the TV was broken." And it's kind of funny because now we watched it, and like my wife and I looked at each other. Megan and I looked at each other. We were just like, "Hmm, I guess that's that." You know, like it was just we were forewarned, so it wasn't that scary. We are just like, I don't know. I took it as the camera has always been a person, and that person just left. They were done. They were done following these people around. How else could it have ended?
Did you ever see that interview with the showrunner, the writer? I think it was the writer or showrunner that he accidentally spoiled it, like what the meaning was. Because for years they'd ask him, "Oh, what did that mean? What's that mean? What's it?" And he'd be like, "I don't know. It's up to you. What do you think?" And it's in the show. It's in the last episode. It's throughout the season. The message is there. If you pay attention, you can kind of see how it ends. And then, and then he accidentally revealed it in an interview where he was like, and then bam, he gets shot. And then he was like, "Oh, you son of a bitch!" Like he gets mad at the interviewer.
Oh, that's what he said because I couldn't find that. I couldn't find a full confirmation if that's what he said or that's what he meant. Because there is a man who full on Godfather style comes in a
Yep.
members only jacket, goes to the bathroom exactly like it. If he's following the same kind of things, you would assume that he's there to pick up a gun, come out of the bathroom, shoot, and leave. My problem with that is that Carmela picked the spot. So how, unless she's the person who hired the hit, which is a fucking beautiful theory I would love to go through with anybody because it can make sense so hardcore. I don't get why somebody would have stashed a gun there rather than just walking in with it.
And that's I haven't seen the episode, so I wouldn't be able to play on that end and know the plot points as to who was where. But yeah, and then there was also later on they're like, okay, that makes sense that he let it slip because there's either a line in the show or something that he had said previously about death where when you die, it's not like you die and then you're like, oh shit, I died. Like it's just the last thing it's like that, like the ending. Like you just look up and then it's just blackness, like nothing. You don't exist anymore. And that's how he ended the show of like as soon as he got shot, like there's no camera there because it's told from his perspective of a camera of seeing him fall back and die or anything like that. It's supposed to be told from his perspective, and that's why it just cuts.
Fucking I buy that. I 100% can believe that. It was good.
Yeah, in spite of all this, like I know there was warnings on the spoilers, and like you said, it's decades old anyway. But the whole show is not defined by the ending of knowing that but he dies in the end. It doesn't matter. It's the journey there, the writing, all of the stuff in between. That's the good stuff. So don't let that discourage you if you were on the fence on watching The Sopranos.
Oh no, it's 13 episodes a season except for season 6, which is for some reason broken down to 6A and 6B. 6B is like 9 episodes. 6A, I want to say it didn't get the full 13, but it's still on double digits. So it's just about there. So we're talking like dozens of episodes of awesome. And like I said too, if you like something in which you actually have to pay attention to, I know that it's a lot of people's MO, mine included, for just some kind of dumb TV. You sit and you wait and you find something to watch and you put it on and then you open up Instagram or then you check your email and you can kind of juggle both. And it's kind of become, normal because our brain needs that stimulation of needing to do more than one mindless thing. Let's do two mindless things. Soprano, you need your full mind for, if you ask me. And like it's sitting, engaging, and good television, regardless of, like you said, like he dies in the end. Like, yeah, okay. Well, what's the end though? Where was the beginning? What happened? Yeah, there's so many more questions than the end.
On my end, I have been diving into, I don't know if you saw, but the Oscar noms went up and Golden Globes just ended. But right around the season where Oscar noms go up, Bill, I forgot what movie it was that I was like, this is bullshit. This should have won. And that's when Kelly and I years ago did the Broskers. And it's like, we're going to have our own award show type of thing. Like at first it was like a parody thing. And now it's like, no, let's legit choose our movies. So I put out the call on Discord. It's up on the hosts channel, but we are working on getting our nominations together for this year's Broskers. So based on a bunch of movies that I haven't seen from last year that are on my watch list, I started chipping away. I started Elvis last night because I heard some decent things about that. That's on HBO Max. So I'm like, all right, let me check that out. And then I added a bunch of stuff onto Netflix and Vudu based on the nominations for the Oscars and based on other people's recommendations. So I want to make sure I check all these out before I start putting together any kind of list. And the other hosts on here, participating hosts, whoever wants to do it, they're going to put in their nominations too, some inside baseball here, and then we'll put out in March the slate, and eventually we'll announce the winners in March as well. So that's when that's happening. That's kind of been my homework for the month and into February. So I'll be watching a lot of movies. and Elvis, so far, it's solid. I'm not a huge fan of the direction. I don't like Tom Hanks in it either. Like, I'm starting to think Tom Hanks might have been a fluke. Like, he's been a fraud this whole time. Like, I saw his clips in Pinocchio and I'm like, yeah, he wasn't good in that either. Like, anytime lately, I don't know, like his roles are goofy. Mr. Rogers, he's not good in those. And I'm starting to think that maybe either later in his career, he's just losing it, or maybe it's just me. I have no idea, but I don't like him in Elvis. He's pretty bad in it.
No, it's not just you. That's the reason I won't watch it. Well, two reasons. One, I think that kid looks creepy dressed up as Elvis. The poster itself on HBO Max, it honestly just not appealing. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look like Elvis to me. Two is, just watching him in him being Tom Hanks, the trailer, the accent's really bad, and it sounds like Tom Hanks trying to do an accent. You could still hear the Tom Hanks in there. And I would fully agree that I think his entire 2022 is just a fucking phone in. Just resting on the laurels that my name is Tom Hanks. So I hope he breaks out of that. He's got some good stuff. He's not bad. I can't say he's been faking it this whole time, but shit, he's not done anything in which I've enjoyed in a hot minute.
Yeah,
but really, let me know. Like I said, I like the Elvis kid. The kid in general seems cool.
I liked Tom and obviously Forrest Gump and The Green Mile. Like, those are two. Catch Me If You Can. He was good in that. I just don't know why. Like, it's just lately, I don't know what's going on. Maybe he just shouldn't do like roles with accents, because Mr. Rogers, he had to try to play Mr. Rogers and it didn't work. In Pinocchio, he's playing Geppetto, and this one, I don't know what the race is of this character. So I'm like, you just don't do accents, dude. Play a character in the 50s with a fedora. Like, just keep it there.
Yeah, just a mild mannered person. That's where you need to keep it. Actually, one of that, see, and he can do accents, but maybe it's only for made up countries. Because, like, I don't know. And this is gonna really make me just sound like an absolute fucking idiot. Jesus, my wife's not even awake to correct me if I'm wrong. Like, in the terminal, what country was he from? Was that a real country?
Kavorka or something? Yeah, I don't know if that's real.
Something, right? It's not a real one though, right?
I'm gonna look that up now. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. So maybe that's why his accent was so good. It didn't fucking have to sound like it was from anywhere. But I don't think, the more I think about it, I don't think that he was from a real fucking country.
Here it is. Fictional country of Krakozia. That's right.
Okay, cool. All right, good. I was about to sound like such a dumbass if I was like, he was from that fake place called like Russia or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Krakosians get real upset.
Not real. So that's why his accent worked in that movie. I just remember going, please.
Right. And there were moments in that I'm like, okay, no. Sometimes it didn't work, but I didn't. I'm with you. I didn't have a problem with it in Terminal.
No, I have a strange place in my heart for that movie. I enjoy it for reasons that I don't know because it wouldn't work. It's not like I know everywhere's got the suspension of disbelief. Might even start with the term "once upon a time." However, the idea that there's a Stanley Tucci who wouldn't let this guy go halfway down the road to get to the Hilton really quick, like he would care that much, don't buy it. The American spirit would be broken. You'd be like, "Where you go? Just go. Just fucking go. You're not my problem anymore. I'm
Mhm.
over this." And then that whole part where he's like, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for this to be legal.
Right.
That I believe more. But at the same time, he's like, nobody's watching. Like again, all I have to do is go get this guy to sign this thing a block and a half down the road and I'll leave. That's it. Zoe Saldana's in it. I like her too. She's a very small part, but she wasn't famous. She wasn't in the top $4 billion movies or whatever the fuck I just read about her. Did you see that?
No, no, I didn't. I did see. Heard about the Cameron stuff though, with all the billion. He's got like 5 billion, over 2 billion movies or $1 billion movies. I forget, but no, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, because she's in the two Avengers, the Endgame and the Infinity War, and then she's in the two Avatars.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She's in 4 movies that have made over $1 billion. And I think she's the only person to ever do that or some shit.
That headline alone must have made her net worth like go off, like skyrocket. Yeah. Like
Hell, how can you not? Yeah.
Hopefully, and it sounds like she has an amazing agent because she ends up in these huge blockbusters. But hopefully, her agent is like, look, her movie just made $2 billion. You're gonna pay her well.
Anybody, yeah. It's just like, she shows up like, this is gonna be the next $1 billion thing. She's like, what color am I this time? I've done blue, I've done green. Oh, I'm yellow. Cool. This will be fun.
Yeah, and I would play it like, look, if you don't want to pay her what she's asking for, she doesn't need this. She's got Avatar 3 through 6 coming.
Can I pivot really quick about a separate issue? Not really an issue, just more of a question of bullshit. Do you have a second?
Yeah.
I was talking about, she was blue, she was green, she was yellow, and just weirdly kind of had my mind going to the M&M people. And did you see that the M&M people are no more spokespeople of the M&Ms? It's just going to be Mayor Rudolph telling us to buy M&Ms.
No,
I didn't feel about no more of those guys. Are we really going to have a Christmas? And Daniel, I might boycott the entire thing because if there's a motherfucking Christmas in my future without red and yellow creeping down the hallway to be like, I don't know, I never met the guy, and then they stumble upon Santa, and Santa's like, they do exist, and like he does exist. Daniel, I'm gonna be pissed, bro. That they can't just take away the M&M people, can they?
Why are they doing that? That's a merchandise. Like you go to there's an M&M store here in Florida in the Florida Mall, and they have plushes and shit, T-shirts, all kinds of merch with all those guys on it. Why would you take that away?
Didn't read exactly why. I only saw, I literally was just reading it. I got out of work today at 4:30, and then we were doing this, so like it wasn't too much follow-up time. I thought it had something to do with the shoes, and I don't know if that's true or not because they put somebody in. All right, the controversy started last January when the green M&M spokes candy exchanged her white go-go boots for white sneakers. All right, so it did have something to do with footwear. At the time, the Mars company said in a statement they were creating a world where everyone feels they belong.
Right. Yeah, I'm reading here that the company was lambasted for changing the green M&M from her high heels to sneakers, and that was like a big deal too. And now they're pausing the use of it. Yeah, like you were saying, polarizing changes. I didn't know they were fucking. Why is this controversial? What's the big deal here?
I think we're trying to assign them gender, maybe, or furthermore, it noted that the Green's change in appearance reflected, quote, confidence and empowerment as a strong female and known for much more than her boots, end quote. I'm on a Forbes article right now. M&M ditches spokes candies after backlash. Here's why it matters. Just printed 2 days ago for anybody who wants to read it. Forbes Leadership Careers is the 3 little dents, but apparently like I'm talking, it has something to do with the footwear and what that footwear has to or doesn't have to or could have to do with gender and empowerment of the difference between heels and boots, or I don't know. All I know is they're fucking done with them.
Yeah, so I read all of it here, and actually, this is a good stopping point. Let's save this for after the end credits, real quick. So that'll keep some brokettes like, wait a minute, what? Because I've got the answer here. So Nick, before we head into the end credit end song, please once again thank you for being on and let them know where they can find you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I say it every time, and I really truly mean it every time. Even this part about meaning it every time. That like I can't wait to see that shit in my inbox of like, all right, Nick, you ready? I'm like, oh fuck yeah, I am. I get so excited. I enjoy it every time. I always get nervous before we start too. It's so strange, and then like 2 seconds into it, mellow out. So I've got to say, dude, it's always absolutely my pleasure, and I thank you. Thank everybody out there who hasn't texted Daniel. Be like, dude, I like your show, but I won't listen if Nick comes back on. Appreciate you not doing that, though. I'd understand it. I used to do a Buds, Bros, and Superheroes podcast. I do want to get back into it or some iteration of it. I don't know what I want to do. I want to go back to creating, but right now I'm getting more stability back in my job, which is could create, more time to do that. But in the meantime, I would still, you can't even follow me on that Instagram, dude. I got kicked out of that since I didn't put pictures of my face up there. I can't send them a video of my face to let me back on. The whole thing's confusing. Twitter, I have one of those, a Buds, Bros, and Superheroes Twitter. I would do that. I would look for me here a little bit more. Until then, try to figure something out. But the second I figure something out, you'll be the number one on there. So we'll get it out there for anybody who wants to know. I appreciate you let me try to spread my word.
Yeah, and there will be links on the description of today's episode. And just in case you do end up getting your Instagram back, I'm of course going to leave that link up there in the description as well. And if anything, they can check out some of the older pictures too. And if you want to connect with all the hosts on here or any other Brokettes, head on over to our Discord channel. There's a link in the description as well at the very bottom of today's episode, and also at thereasonsimbroke.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a Discord link there as well. We have the main channel, and then we've got the Collector's Corner in case you're a comic collector or Power Rangers collector like Nick, and you want to share that haul, put it in the Collector's Corner, which was a great idea by Bobby, and that's where he puts a bunch of his CGC books that he gets. That's where I put a bunch of the TCG cards that I get as well. So that's, again, on our Discord. But thank you again for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, joined by Nick, and Brokette Core. All will be well. All right, so I found so there were a bunch of conservative commentators that got on M&M because they recently rebranded a bunch of their M&M spokespeople candy. They've got a name for it, but they're spokes candies where, for example, the orange M&M embraced his anxiety like disorder thing, where they're making it less of a joke that he's anxious all the time or scared or whatever, and he's embracing it instead. They made a couple of the M&Ms gay, and then yes, they changed the boots on the green M&M, and I guess in turn making her less sexy. I don't know, de-sexifying her. So they got accused of woking the M&Ms. So that's when you mentioned that they put out that statement of, they said, last year we made some changes to our beloved spokes candies. We weren't sure that anyone would notice, and it broke the internet, so they are indefinitely pausing the spokes candies. And that's when they said, introducing a person that we can all agree on, the beloved Maya Rudolph. And that's what you were talking about. So they replaced them with a comedian. I don't know if you get the same, and it would be, I guess, an insult to Maya, but it feels like this is like a new Coke switch where people can be like, no, wait a minute, bring them back. And when they do, sales go through the roof or something.
That's a good call. That makes the most sense. Because really, shoes. I mean, I would be on the same page as them. Like, we weren't sure if anyone would even notice. Mm-hmm. That's brilliant. I didn't notice. So if you're reading the same one that they put out by me, like there is a purple one on there. I wasn't aware that there was a little purple one all of a sudden. Me either. However, I did know exactly what you're talking about. Like the crunchy guy, he was nervous because he was crunchy. Now it's like, no, he's got a thing and he's dealing with it. And I was like, that's beautiful. We can use a little bit of everybody. I think it's this, the same thing that you just talked about in terms of it's the killing off of Brian Griffin, just to demand him back and get him back for Family Guy fans. But like I said, there is zero chance, and I'll say it now, 125-23, there is zero chance that in exactly 11 months time when it is Christmas that fucking M&M commercial that has always played for as long as I can remember doesn't play again. There's zero. I don't know if Christmas could truly happen without that happening.
Holy shit. That's a big deal.
It's like the Hershey Kiss one, I'm not trying to give all these or the Campbell's soup when the kid comes in from being a snowman and he gets all warmed up. I mean, they're holiday traditions, those two asking if Santa Claus is real and then they faint and Am I the only crazy one? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you care this much, or am I just wound up for nothing about this one?
I definitely used to like the Coca-Cola bears. I don't care for Coca-Cola. I'm a Pepsi
Yeah.
guy, always have been, but I like the Coca-Cola bears, and that was always a thing at movie theaters. You'd see the big commercial with the Coke bears, and I don't know. Yeah, I guess it would be kind of weird, but maybe it's because I'm not exposed to as many commercials anymore with in the day of streaming, except for when I go to the movie theaters. So I guess I've kind of lost that. Or the Flintstones Christmas. It's like, why are they celebrating Christmas? They're the fucking Flintstones. But
Yeah.
that was another one. Like,
That's hysterical, BC. So why would they celebrate Christmas? That's fucking hysterical.
but now, so M&Ms, if they're gone, Christmas is canceled, Nick, is what you're saying. There's no
Dude,
Christmas.
I see. You're 100% goddamn right. That's 100% true.
Well, then I got to ask, which is your favorite? Who is your favorite M&M? Is it, I'm guessing the red and the yellow one?
It is. The yellow one's been voiced by J.K. Simmons this whole time, dude.
I did not know that. I didn't know any of the voices. I'm sure they would have done other voices, but I didn't know any of their names.
Yeah, no, the fucking he's always now going to be Commissioner Gordon, but I always think of that. I always think of Tenzin from Avatar,
Mhm.
Whiplash. I mean, it's that same guy who's been going Santa this whole time.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? Isn't it fucking crazy?
Further range that guy has.
He's amazing. Oh man, his voice is great. I love him. I love him in Juno. He's got that one line like, "Paulie Bleecker, I'm gonna punch that kid in the wiener."
So for you, he's the voice of Christmas.
Yes, he is. He's the voice of a lot too. I love him and I love you, man. I love that guy no matter what he does. He seems like he's somebody we always talk at work. Like, who would be in your dream rotation? Bro, if Simmons smokes, I want to smoke up with him.
There you go. I'm sure he does.
J. Jonah Jameson
Seems like he would.
himself. Yeah, right?